For those who haven't met me, I'm David Orton. I live in just north of Toowoomba, and I'll be your District Governor for the next Lions year. Thank you for attending this webinar. This is the second in a series of 6 planned over these 2 weeks. This may not be your preferred training method, but in the circumstances, it is our only training method if we're to conduct training prior to July this year. I hope that most of you have received your paper copy of your Treasurer's Manual. If not, receive the electronic copy. This webinar format will allow you to speak, and now that we've made some changes this evening, when you speak, your video will actually show on the full screen. You do have the ability to ask questions, and Arthur will afford you plenty of opportunities to ask questions, and we encourage that. This is technically different from a Zoom meeting. This is a Zoom webinar. This is very much an interactive session. I congratulate you on your role and your role as part of your club's management team. For your whole club, and especially the management team, this is going to be a challenge for all. It'll be a challenge in managing your club pre or during COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. And you and your management team have to breathe life into your club. And I trust you're able to do your job or carry out your role in these circumstances. This is a very different year, or it will be. Just checking some points as well. To your club and your management team, if you have any issues, we're here to assist you as your district team. We're not here to solve club issues. We are here and able to provide advice. So if you need assistance or you need advice, please talk to us. In my role as District Governor this year, my theme is to make a difference through service. And I wish to concentrate and draw that distinction between fundraising and service. Service to others, service within your local community, and in particular, the service that stimulates the heart and the head. And it's the service that drives our passion and makes us want to be Lions and continues that desire to be a Lion, to be a Lion. On an administrative note, if because of the circumstances or other reasons you have members intending to leave Lions, it's very important that that's recorded in my LCI before July this year, preferably well before. Otherwise, their dues will become due in July next year or when we receive those statements. So it's very important to tidy up any membership issues before the beginning of July. In this webinar, the host may mute all attendees' microphones. If we do, try, if you wish to ask a question, rather than unmute yourself, try using the space bar on your keyboard, and that should temporarily unmute you and allow you to ask a question. That will stop some of the feedback we get at times or spurious interference from other sources or other noise or ambient noise within your household. There will be adequate opportunities to ask questions, and I know Arthur certainly likes questions. So that's about all from me. I'd like to introduce Past District Governor Arthur Witherman, who's our Cabinet Treasurer, and it's now over to him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And I'd like to thank everybody for giving up your evenings tonight to come and share our experiences as experienced treasurers, new treasurers, or wherever you might fit on the spectrum of your treasury experience. You've all got something worthwhile to contribute. I'm absolutely sure of that. And as David said, I look forward to hearing from your questions. And bear in mind that there's no such thing as a stupid question. I can say if you've got some information that you need to glean from me or the group here this evening, ask the question. Don't go home. Well, you're already home, aren't you? Don't go away from this meeting wishing that you had asked the question. I guarantee that I will answer all questions as honestly as I can. If I don't know the answer, I will acknowledge that fact and arrange to get a response for you. So don't be frightened, don't be shy, don't be too proud to ask a question or to ask for assistance, because we're all here together. We're sharing this journey together this year, and we will work our way through this year. And one of my important roles this year is to assist all of you to get through this year and come out the other side in a better shape than you went in, hopefully, knowing a lot more about the role and being confident and competent and a very effective member of your management team within your club. I hope that most of you have got your manuals with you here this evening, because I was going to refer to them quite extensively. Firstly, we'll discuss your duties and responsibilities, and when we get to the end of each section, I'll provide an opportunity for people to ask questions if they haven't been asked already, so that we don't go past those particular points without you being comfortable that you picked up all the information you need. So in relation to your duties and responsibilities as the club treasurer, you are responsible for maintaining the financial records of the club on behalf of your club board by receipting and banking all monies promptly, keeping the books of accounts up to date at all times, and providing your board of directors and ultimately the members of your club with accurate information at least monthly regarding the financial standing of your club. If you are looking for any assistance in terms of documentary information you can obtain, I would refer you to your club constitution. It contains a lot of information which will help you in your role. And you might also, if you've got not a lot to do, like to read the Associations and Corporations Act. It's got a lot of useful information as well. So we're going to start off with dues and voluntary contribution invoices. When we make those payments, we send all the payments to the Cabinet Treasurer, and you'll find that you'll be sending them to my home address this year. Previously, all of those payments have been going to my post office box, but one of the safety mechanisms that I've adopted within the COVID regime as a person who will be 80 next birthday and not supposing to go out too often, I'm having the cheques posted to my home. It will mean a delay of 1 day in getting the monies banked, but that's a small price to pay. They'll all be in a timely fashion in any case. So when you look at the manual, if you don't have it with you now, it will show you my home address. The invoices, when they arrive, will all have my home address on them. So with the district dues, and I'll just bypass the fact that the district dues have been waived for the first 6 months of the year at this stage, because what's relevant to the first 6 months in ordinary circumstances is also relevant to the second 6 months of the year. So for district dues, the cheques should be made out to Lyons District 201Q3 Inc. and paid to me. The multiple district dues likewise, and cheques for the voluntary payments which come from multiple district office are also made out to Lyons District 201Q3 and paid to me. International dues invoices, you should draw the cheque from your administration account and make it payable to Lions Clubs International, but post it to me as the Cabinet Treasurer. So, in other words, all of those payments come to the Cabinet Treasurer. In the normal course of events, in the first set of semi-annual billing dues, you'd get an invoice for multiple district dues, a month for district dues, each of which would require you to draw 2 cheques, one from your administration account and one from your community service account. When the second semi-annual dues come around, there'll only be 3 cheques to be drawn, because all of the multiple district dues in the second semi-annual billing will come from the administration account only. So when you do get your invoices from me, they'll come to you in duplicate, and I ask that you send one of those copies of the invoice back to me, because this with your cheque, because that will significantly reduce the time it's going to take me to process your payment in our district books. Remember that the international account should always be drawn on a separate cheque and also sent to me, but made out to Lions Clubs International. And I would ask you that even though if you see on the Lions Clubs International website, there are opportunities for you to pay your money directly to the USA, please do not do that. Money that's paid through the Cabinet Treasurer in Australia will stay in Australia. Those monies will not be transferred to the United States. If you pay them through the internet, through some sort of form of direct debit or credit account, credit card, those monies will stay in the United States. So please remember that. One thing with the district and multiple district and international account queries, I will always be your first point of contact. If you've got a problem, a query or something you don't understand, please contact me. And as far as international dues are concerned, we recommend that you would always pay the amount that they've asked you for, but refer your query to me, and I will take up the cudgel on your behalf and talk to contacts that I have in Chicago, and we'll get the matters resolved for you. So, that's pretty important, that you make sure that you actually you make sure that all of the funds come through the Cabinet Treasurer. Club financial reports.
Arthur, just before you go on, we have one phone-in attendee. I'm not sure who that is. There must be come in not via phone, not via the computer. So
Yes.
I'm not sure who it is, but they might like to.
John Broad, Norm.
Hello, John.
Arthur, g'day.
Glad you got on board.
Just as you were introduced, so I came on at the right time.
Right.
And we have one question, Arthur.
Yes.
It's from Jean. It says, do we have to pay cheques or can we do an EFT?
I would prefer the accounts to be paid by cheques, but I will not turn down the money coming by EFT, but I would ask Jean to be aware of the fact that she's making more work for me if she chooses to pay that way. But I won't reject the payment coming by that option. So, Jean, if you do wish to pay that way, when you get your account, please give me a ring and we'll talk through what I would expect you to do to make life as easy as possible for me if you pay that way.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Not a problem. So actually, we'll just move on. As far as our club financial reports are concerned, we've mentioned that you're going to produce a report for the board meeting every month, which will ultimately go through your club meeting as well. You'll also, at the end of the year, have to send the audited accounts to the Office of Fair Trading. And in ordinary times, the timing of that would be within the 1 month of the conduct of your annual general meeting, which has to be within 6 months of the end of the financial year. But the Office of Fair Trading, because of the COVID crisis, has extended by 6 months the period that you have to hold your annual general meeting. So if you can get the annual general meeting held in normal timeframes, that will be great. So don't take advantage of the offer, but if you need to use the grace, because I don't know what the arrangements are going to be going forward in terms of meeting numbers and when we can hold meetings in the fashion that we'd like to hold them. So use the grace period if you have to, but don't sort of flaunt it if you can get your meetings done in the earlier time. And also I would just like to mention this day's late payments. They do have impacts clubs that haven't paid their dues will lose delegate voting rights at convention. So there is an incentive if you're going to have delegates going to convention. There are incentives to make sure that you have got your accounts paid. And also any of the club presidents' excellence awards that might be available to your management team in your club will be damaged by any late payments that you might make. But also, and this is critically important as far as Lions Clubs International is concerned, from the 1st of July 2010, it was introduced that clubs will be automatically placed in financial suspension if balances are beyond 120 days and equal to $20 a member or $1,000, whichever is the lesser, and a cancellation will occur after the 28th of the month following the suspension if full payment is not received. So what effectively happens is that you would be put into financial suspension and given 28 days to clear the account, or your charter will be withdrawn. So we desperately try to make sure we keep our clubs out of that circumstances. Sometimes things happen and it's not easy to avoid getting close to this for the odd club or two, but the problem with this is please try not to go in there the first time, because if you go in there a second time, there's an automatic cancellation of your charter and your club will no longer be a Lions Club. So, and I would suggest that for this particular 6-monthly period, because of the benefits that are flowing to clubs as a result of district waiving the dues for the first 6 months and multiple district extending from August till the 28th of October, the time by which you have to pay your multiple district dues, I would strongly urge that you have a priority to pay your international dues first. The consequences of not paying your dues to international are far more severe than they are if you've got delays in paying your district or multiple district dues. So please, please take heed of that, and we wouldn't like to lose clubs because of late payment of dues. So in terms of fund usage, the administration account, and this is the area that makes being a treasurer for a Lions Club somewhat different to being a treasurer in any other organisation, and that is the understanding of what goes where, what money you bank into which accounts, and what accounts you take money from to pay bills. So basically the administration account relates to the running of the club for its members and covers things like membership dues, entrance fees, transfer fees, club meeting income such as dinner fees, raffles, tail twisting, etc. And you should have a dedicated receipt and checkbook for that particular account. And the activities or community service account is basically the money you raise from the public, which is held in trust. And you must also have a separate set of accounts, a receipt and checkbook for that as well. But in relation to the community service account, you can pay the costs of your community service project out of that account, and it's the profits of which go to help the members of the community. So the club and your club books of account, as I said earlier, should be maintained and written up regularly throughout the month. And I would suggest that people make sure they don't get behind, that they don't fall behind in keeping your records up to date, because I can assure you from personal experience that if you do, for some reason or other, fall behind, and there can be very good valid reasons why you might fall behind, it takes a fair amount of effort to catch up again. So stay on top of it if you can at all times. As far as your international, multiple district and district dues, they must be paid immediately and ratified by the next board meeting. This is one area where the board does not have to give prior approval for what you're paying. However, the voluntary payments invoices which come with the multiple district dues do need to go to the board for approval before they're paid. And they can be, and your expenses can be paid by cheque or electronic transfer with board approval for whatever bills you're paying. Cheques or electronic fund transfer records should be written for your expenditure. Receipts should be issued for all income. And as I said before, separate ledgers should be maintained for each account. And importantly, bank statements should be tabled at your board meeting and countersigned by the president on a monthly basis. So this enables the board to see that the amount of money that you're actually balancing your financial statement to, financial report to, equates to the amount of money that the bank says you have. So it's just a safety mechanism to ensure that we don't make it easy for somebody that might be a little on the naughty side to have a shot at trying to take some of our money for themselves. As far as cash is concerned, you have 2 days to get that bank, 2 working days, 2 banking days to get that bank from the time you receive it. And if you don't have it banked inside that time and the money is lost and you make an insurance claim, it will not be covered by insurance. So the cover only runs for 2 days from the time you get it. And the Office of Fair Trading, or the Associations and Corporation Act, requires that there are certain registers that the club must keep. And they are a register of receipt books, a register of checkbook numbers. So basically the receipt book numbers in the register, you indicate the date on which you start using that receipt book and the end date, and the same with your checkbook. If you've got any art unions or raffle books, you need to have a register of those, and also club assets require a register to be maintained. So, but as I mentioned earlier, about as far as the invoices are concerned, this time around you're going to get 1 invoice less, and that will be the district dues will not be charged to you. However, the decision that the management team has made to waive these dues to clubs, and we have done this on the basis of costs that we do not have to meet because of the COVID virus. And we figure that it's only fair that those costs should go back to the clubs who actually, put the money in sort of business that we spend. We're like the government. The government has no money. They've only got taxpayers' money. District has no money. It's all the members' money. So because we aren't having expenses to the same level in this current calendar year, we are passing those on to clubs. So, but that will require ratification at the convention when we have it, and I hope and don't think clubs are going to vote themselves out of that benefit, because if they do, I'll be posting out invoices 2 days after the convention to collect the funds. So that's not going to happen. So are there any questions so far?
Just press your space bar and start talking, and you'll unmute yourself.
So right, that was no questions, Norm?
I didn't see any, mate, so I can't see them holding up their hands that they can't get through. So
no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure there weren't any questions there. In your manual, there are copies of the invoice, what the invoices will look like coming from multiple district and international. We won't go through them there. You'll get them when they arrive. And if you've got any questions about them, please contact me. I want to be helpful. My job is to be helpful to you and provide you with whatever assistance I can. So I look forward to hearing from you. But I do want to talk a little bit about the international invoices. I don't know how many of you can actually see one in your manual at the moment, but it's basically split into 4 areas. There's a remittance advice on the top of the invoice. There's an area for invoice details underneath it, which usually contains a message of some sort from LCI for you. And down the bottom left-hand corner, there's a monthly membership report. Now, the invoices or the statements are put out in US dollars, but they actually do show up near the top right-hand corner the conversion rate of for that particular month to convert the US dollars into Australian dollars, which tells you how many Australian dollars you need to pay to cover the debt in US dollars. And I must stress to you that these conversion rates are basically changing on a monthly basis. So, and they only hold for a month. So if you don't get your checks to me in time for me to bank them by the end of that month, and the conversion rate moves in the wrong direction as far as you're concerned, you'll finish up with having paid your account, but there'll be small debit amounts sitting on the on your next statement. So and sometimes you can be lucky if you're late and the conversion factor goes the right way for you and you've got a little credit, but realistically you need to try and get it paid on time. Now, if you're getting paper invoices, you won't get them from LCI until about the 3rd week of the month, which doesn't give you very long to get them to me to get them banked in time to meet the deadline. However, you can download them from MyLCI, and they're available about 3, 4, 5 working days from the end of the month. So you can download them and you can and then pay them at that point. It gives you a lot more time. Now, if you're having any trouble trying to download them, contact me and I will help you get them, and if needs be, I'll actually get them for you. But if you're going to wait until the paper copies arrive, you're not going to have much time to pay. I would recommend that everybody tries to download them, because what we don't know is in particular clubs, if a club officer has already taken the option to say we don't want paper copies and we'll always use download, if that information is not passed on to you, you can be sitting around waiting for invoices to arrive that are never going to turn up. So I would recommend that everybody downloads their invoices quickly, gives yourself plenty of time to pay them, and you'll be much better off in terms of getting them to me on time. Now, one thing that relates to these invoices, but also relates to the multiple district and district invoices, and that is that the numbers that you're going to be billed for each invoice are based on the numbers of members you have on MyLCI on the 30th of June or the 31st of December in each case. So if you, as David mentioned earlier, if you've got people you know are going to be dropping out for sure, and I'm not an advocate of dropping people out of our organisation, don't get me wrong, but if you know that you're going to lose some people, it would be foolish to leave them on and then get an account from everybody to pay their dues, because they're not going to be there to pay the dues to you. So you're going to lose out if that happens. So I'd suggest you do that as David suggested. And as I said before, please make sure you pay these to me, and the money will stay in Australia. So
Arthur, there's a question there from David, just wanting to know when the invoices will pop up on the website. So that'd be the Lions Club's international invoices.
Yeah, the Lions Club's international invoices will pop up usually about the 4th or 5th day after the end of the month, and you can just go in and print them. Because when you go in, and you call your club members up, you'll see statement. One of the options on the side is to click on statement. So if you click on that, you can download it. There's one thing I would say though. There's 2 documents you can download. One is the statement, and one is a monthly transaction record. So if you're ever looking at the monthly transaction record, and as some clubs have done this year, and they pay their account from that monthly transaction record, which shows the current debt that's owing, it's in United States dollars only, and that document does not show a conversion rate. So you've actually got to multiply the American dollars on that document by the conversion rate that applies for the month. So now, and in your manual, there is a link which will let you, tells you what you can click on, and it'll take you straight to where the information about the exchange rates are held. And you just click on exchange rates, and then it comes up, and you pick off the month you want, and it'll show you in alphabetical order of countries, and Australia being up near the top, it's easy to find. So that's how I would recommend you handle that. And I would ask that you please don't inadvertently add the United States invoice, LCI invoice values onto any of the checks that you're paying to me. We can get around it, but again, it makes a lot of work. And please never ever make out checks in Australian dollars and send them to the United States, because you cannot bank checks made out in Australian dollars in the United States of America. So what will happen is, and some clubs have done it, a couple have done it in the last couple of years, so basically they get posted to the United States, they get them over there and they sit and say, we can't do this. So they wait till they get enough of them and send them back to Newcastle. Then Newcastle goes through them, and then they work out what district the club is in, and they send them back to the treasurer in that particular district. So you could lose 2 or 3 months. And this shows you how it's possible to run into trouble with getting your accounts paid there, because you think you've paid your money, and you've got a check in the process, but it's not ever going to be transacted. So, and when I get it back, I'm going to send it back to you, so you can make out a check appropriately, and away we go. So there are valid reasons why people can get into trouble with paying their accounts in the United States. But as I said, make sure that your June and December monthly membership numbers are correct, because that's the basis on which you're going to be charged. Any questions at this stage?
I think all the questions that have come up.
Not a problem. Thanks, Norm. So we're basically now going to look at some basic guidelines that are for incorporated Lions clubs that help us understand what our responsibilities are in terms of honouring our incorporation responsibilities. I mean, say there are lots of benefits to us being incorporated, because it removes the responsibility from individual members of the club corporately to the club itself, so that no individual member is actually liable for things that might go untoward. So, but there are costs that we have to incur, and they're not particularly difficult costs, and they're only the sorts of things that you would be doing in any case to keep your records in an appropriate fashion. So the cost isn't there, but the benefits are great. So I just think you should be aware that there's a reason why we're doing what we're doing here, and we are required to keep certain documents. So those documents are books of account, and all other records to be kept for every Lions club shall include a cash book or a statement of accounts received and paid. Now that cash book can be interpreted as a paper copy set up, or a computer spreadsheet, or whatever accounting package you're using. So we should have a set of accounts for every individual account. Your activities account should have its own separate account with its bank books and all the rest of it, and your administration account should have a completely separate set of books. And what you are required to keep in those set of books is your cash book, or your spreadsheet, or your accounting package. A register of receipts books received, used and held by the club, a register of checkbooks, a register of members. Now this is usually held by a club secretary, but I have a fair feeling that there wouldn't be many clubs represented here tonight who've actually got a current register of their members. So, but you're required to have one under the Act. A register of club assets, a petty cash book or spreadsheet or minute book, usually held by the club secretary. Records of the accounts of the Lions clubs keeps with its banks, building society or credit union that are given to the club by financial institutions. So in other words, you are required to keep all of your bank statements, all of your deposit books, all of your checkbooks, all of those records and books that you use, you are required to keep, and keep a separate ledger for each of your accounts. And actually the board of directors for the clubs shall ensure that all books are kept in such a manner that will correctly record and explain the transactions to the financial position of the club, enable the statement referred to in the Associations Incorporation Act to be prepared, and that's the statement for audit, and enable your accounts and affairs to be properly audited in a convenient and efficient fashion, sort of business. So what it boils down to is the better record keeping you do, the better record keeping you have, the more information you put into your records, the easier it's going to be for the auditor, the less time the auditor is going to spend on your audit, and the less that audit is going to cost to you. That's important that you keep all of those books. The manner in which the books of account and other club records are kept shall be: the funds must be kept in an account in the name of the incorporated club in a financial institution in Queensland, as decided by the Board of Directors. So we don't have any clubs right on the board with New South Wales here, so that's not particularly an issue, but you must have all of your accounts in a financial institute that is actually physically in Queensland, and it is the responsibility of the Board of Directors to identify where all of the funds will be deposited. The records must be kept in English. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? But you know, I had to audit a set of books that were in Vietnamese on one occasion. It was pretty difficult. And on behalf of the club treasurer shall receive all monies paid to the club and issue official receipts. The treasurer or other authorised officer shall cause all monies received without deduction to be deposited as soon as practical into the club's bank account, building society or credit account. And as I mentioned before, the Lions loss of cash insurance cover only extends for 48 hours whilst the money is in the member's home. Particulars of all receipts and payments shall be entered in the cash book without delay. All payments shall be made by cheque or electronic bank transfer drawn upon the club's bank, building society or credit union account. All expenditure shall be approved, ratified by the Board of Directors, and those approvals recorded in the minute book. And that's particularly important because I don't know whether you're all aware of it or not, your minutes are officially part of your financial records. And when you take your accounts for audit, you must take along all of the minutes for the 12 months involved in the period that the audit covers. So remember that you need to treat your minute book as part of your book of accounts, even though you physically don't create that. Hello? Did somebody ask a question? No?
I think it was just something in the background there.
All right, just a background noise, was it?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Right, fair enough, yes, fair enough. So we need to have all documents, all expenditure supported by adequate documentation, and we are theoretically responsible to make sure we file all of those documents in chronological sequence. Of course, that makes it easier for the much easier for the auditor again. All cheques must be signed by any two of the president, secretary, or treasurer, or any one of three other persons. However, the person who signs the cheque, must. Sorry, I'll start that again. The cheques, we ordinarily have three bank signatories: the president, secretary, and treasurer. We can, under the Act, also have up to three other nominated people who can sign cheques. However, if one of those other three people signs the cheque, the president, secretary, or treasurer must be the other signatory. So whilst we can have both signatories coming from the group of three of the president, secretary, treasurer, only one signatory on any cheque can come from up to the other group of up to three people. And this is to make it easier to get your cheques signed. You know, because sometimes it's difficult if people are away or on holidays or sick in hospital or what have you. And also the accounting and other records that you have should be kept in a place that the board may decide. So they'll be your outdated records sort of business. And at regular intervals, your cash book, you should be balanced and reconciled with the cash book and bank balance. So you will be doing that in any case. It happens to be that you've got to provide a financial report to your board once a month, so you should at least be doing it on a monthly basis. The district finances are actually reconciled on a daily basis, and of course this is possible because we have internet banking and we have online access to the balances each day. So But I'm not asking that clubs would do this because most of you wouldn't be using online banking to a really great extent at this stage. Some of you are, of course, and I know some of you are here tonight that are doing that. If you actually have a petty cash system, it must be kept on the Impress system, which means that the general ledger account petty cash will remain dormant at a set amount, and essentially when people come and claim payment for those small amounts they've purchased, they provide the dockets, and then the money's given to them, and then when the money runs a bit low, a cheque is drawn to reimburse the petty cash. So, and this should also be reconciled on a monthly basis. As far as retaining your records, the financial records should be retained for not less than 5 years, and records are to be stored in a secured site. After the mandatory retention period of 5 years, old club records may be destroyed. Care should be taken to ensure that any records to be destroyed do not contain information that has historical importance to the club. It is recommended that each club appoint a club historian who may vet old records prior to destruction to make sure that you don't lose any important information and history about your club. So as far as the financial report that you as a treasurer do to your club, when you get access to your manual, on the bottom of page 14 there is a suggested treasurer's ratification minute, and essentially it says that the treasurer moved that the financial report as presented be adopted, and payments covered by cheques numbered such and such to such and such, and direct debits numbered from such and such to such and such from the administration account, and cheques numbered in the same fashion, and direct debits numbered in the same fashion from the community service account be approved. This is a requirement that most auditors will insist upon, and certainly our district auditor insists that this is what goes on. And that minute should be included in the board minutes each month.
There's a question from David. Arthur?
Yeah.
You just wanting to know which clubs present tonight actually use the EFT to pay bills? I guess just a show of hands would be the way to do it.
Oh, I honestly don't know the answer to the question.
Looks like quite a few there, Arthur.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
And me, Norm.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
I haven't forgotten you, John.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not suggesting that the club shouldn't do that. It's perfectly legitimate. It's just that my reference to the EFT mechanism for paying district dues was confined entirely just to that particular aspect. Yeah, I mean, say let's face it, I'd be a hypocrite if I was to speak against that. I mean, say I have drawn probably about just on 200 payments in this financial year for district, and I would have drawn 4 cheques. All of the rest of them have been transferred funds directly into the people's bank account. So it's an efficient way of processing things. Right. So has anybody got any questions in that area there?
Yeah, I do.
Fire away.
Yeah, sorry, Arthur. Peter speaking.
G'day, Peter.
I'm just harking back to a conversation that Norm and I had several years ago about the requirement for clubs to hold a copy of their certificate of sanction. So I guess the question goes to Norm. That's still a requirement, isn't it, Norm?
Yeah, your certificate of sanction allows the club to raise funds from the public.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, all Lions clubs within our district have a certificate of sanction. It was something you apply for when you apply for your to register your constitution at the Office of Australia. Another document.
I guess my point basically was that I knew that, but I just wanted to make sure all the other new treasurers knew that as well.
Good question, Peter. I knew you knew the answer to the question because we've talked about this before ourselves, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So when you do get a look at your manual, there's a section there called calendar, and basically what it does, it gives you an indication of what you should be doing at what stages in the year. I won't go through it in great detail because you can read it yourself at your leisure, but basically it's you're looking at, in July, you're paying your district, multiple district and international dues, and also you are looking at optional insurance premiums that you may wish to pay with our insurance underwriter. For a variety of reasons, there's a number of insurance areas that you can actually up the level of cover that is automatically provided by the insurance policies that for which you pay your normal dues. Basically, if you get to August and you haven't paid your dues, it's the time to get them paid. Ordinarily, you'd be paying them by the 10th of August, but of course, for this particular period, that's been blown out to the 28th of October for multiple district dues, and there are no district dues to pay at all. In September, you'd be reviewing membership dues for your club, looking for the next half of the year. And so it goes on. In November, you'll be starting to pay for your Christmas cakes and puddings. December, again, you'll be paying cakes and puddings. And also in January, if you haven't paid them already, you've got to get out your rollerblades and pay them very, very quickly. And in January, again, you start collecting dues for multiple district and international dues. And February, you're paying them away again. So there's a range of things there which is designed to help you know what you're doing or help you prepare for what you are going to be doing in that time frame. And there's another category in there which is on page 8, which actually lists the addresses that you can send payments for dues and donations and what have you for a whole range of Lions foundations and what have you. It covers, it goes over again and tells you where you should be paying your multiple district dues to district dues, and that it also tells you where you should be paying your international dues, which is to me again. It also tells you how you would be paying for purchases from the Lions shop in Newcastle. It also tells you how to go about paying for your Lions Christmas cakes and your Lion Mint orders. It also gives you the address for donations and correspondence to the Lions Medical Research Foundation. Also the same for Camp Duckadang. It provides information about Melbourne Jones Fellowships, LCO donations and life memberships, who you should be sending those to. It gives you details of Australian Lions Drug Awareness Foundation if you for donations or purchasing awards. Lions Hearing Dogs, likewise. The Australian Lions Childhood Cancer Research Foundation, and also the Australian Lions Children's Mobility Foundation. All of those have awards, and you can purchase those and make donations at the addresses that are shown there. So that's something else that you can look at when you get to when you get home, sort of business, or have a quiet afternoon to browse through things. But also touch on the annual are there any questions about those areas at all, by any chance? No,
Yeah.
not yet. Not a problem. No.
I just have a general question. They come up later on, but I come from a club overseas, and we had to monthly send a copy of our monthly financial report to our district treasurer. Do we not do that here?
We don't do that here, but we do send a copy of the audited annual financial reports to the district treasurer.
Okay.
And you'll find that information is in the manual. It's most important that you do send that on an annual basis. You must have been very good children overseas to be doing it on a monthly basis, or very non-trusting district in.
It was, I would presume, was related to the country we were in.
Yeah, fair enough. not a problem. But yes, but thank you for the question. And yes, you will. We request that we get a copy of the audited reports. Yeah.
Excuse me, Arthur.
Yes.
There's John here. Can I just go back to certificate of sanction? It's the first time I've sort of heard about it. Is that a Lions requirement or Incorporations Act requirement? And who holds that? Because I don't think I've seen it in our club.
It's a charities. There's a charities act, isn't it, Norm?
Yes, yeah.
I think it's the Charities Act.
A trading requirement. Otherwise, you don't have the authority, and the corporate association doesn't have the authority to raise funds from the public without the certificate of sanction, basically.
Yeah.
So, and every time you have a raffle, you actually have to go back to the Office of Fair Trading or the to get the appropriate permits to actually run the raffle. So that's what certificate of sanctions unlimited. What club are you from, John?
Maloney Blackall Range.
I've never seen one either. Norm?
Isn't that the certificate of incorporation?
No,
Rather than the sanction?
Separate one.
Same thing?
two different things.
No,
You can actually find out, Norm, can't you, by going on to the Office of Fair Trading and calling up your club. And
You can get an order form from the Justice and Attorney General Department.
you can do a search of your incorporated association. All you need to do is go on to the Office of Fair Trading Queensland website, look down the headings, I guess, and look for incorporated associations. It'll come up with a number of different headings, and I think there's one that says something like search an incorporated association. You click on that. You go down another, you just follow your nose sort of thing, and you click on another site that all you put in there is the name of your Lions Club, a postcode, and click find, and it should come up with your Lions Club's incorporated association number. That's your registration of your constitution, and it should come up with what they call a CP number, and that's your certificate of sanction.
Yeah.
So we got to have that actually on hand in the club, or is it's just there that you can go and grab it if somebody asks for it or something?
It just, all that, you'd actually have to then go, if you wanted a copy of it,
yeah,
you'd have to then go to the Office of Fair Trading or the charities section and ask for a copy of it. All that does is give you the actual number.
My question is, Norm, should we have a
You
copy?
should have a copy, yeah. You should have a
Sure.
copy. Yep.
Current fee is $3.30.
There you go. Current fee, $3.30.
Yeah.
And effectively, if you don't have one, you're collecting funds from the public illegally.
Does that certificate
I think-
have to
I
be
think-
displayed at fundraisers?
No,
No, it doesn't have to be.
no.
But if you're running a raffle of over a certain amount of money, and I don't know what it is, $1,000 or $5,000, would you have to quote this number in applying for that art union raffle?
Incorporation covers that, doesn't it?
No, the art union requirements are different.
Once, yeah. I think you'd be right running that that raffle itself just under your certificate of sanction.
Yeah.
Giving you the right to do it. I don't think you need a separate one, but I'd have to check that up, but I don't think you do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You should also have a copy of your certificate of incorporation and an ABN lookup. So you've got a record of your ABN number.
Yeah, we've got all that, and we've got our copy of our corporation, but
Yeah,
I've never heard of the certificate of sanction before, Norm, Peter.
yeah. Well, I hadn't either, but thanks to Norm, I do now.
Bloody Norm.
As I said, I'm pretty sure most clubs actually have it. So it would have been done originally when you incorporated. So that could be, 30 years ago.
I've got to say that whenever I've looked up a incorporation number for a Lions club, I've always noticed that the clubs that I've seen have actually had the certificate of sanction number there with them, sort of business.
Yeah.
I did the exercise a number of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and there was a few clubs that didn't, but I chased them up at the time, and I think they all registered for the certificate of sanction at that time. So everyone should have it.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure any new club actually applies for it at the same time as they incorporate it.
Yeah. Our certificate was dated 1986.
Yeah, well, it may well be with someone in our club, but it's just not mentioned, and it's probably in the back of the file somewhere.
John, I will. I'll do a lookup after the meeting's over and get back to you tomorrow and let you know if I can find the number for you.
Well, thanks, Arthur. I might also try the exercise myself and just check it. I know I've got the ABN and the copy of incorporation, but I just, that one hadn't come across me the same as Bob. I just hadn't heard about it.
Mm-hmm. So I'll do that for you. I'll do that for you and get back to you. It doesn't take very long.
Okay.
And I'm convinced that we'll be able to give you the number. I'm sure you're functioning quite legally.
Well, I'm here and not behind bars anyway.
In front of them, eh? So this next, I was just going to touch on the annual general meeting. It's technically the secretary's responsibility, but we always incorporate this in the treasurer's manual as well, just to have a couple of people in the club being aware of all of the things that are meant to happen with the annual general meeting. And when you look at your manual, you'll find there's roughly a page of information there, plus the suggested wording for some motions that need to be carried at your annual general meeting. And not all of the motions need to be carried because you may not utilise all of the reports that are covered there. But essentially, the motions, the first motion that would be carried is that and you can slightly change the wording to suit yourself, as long as you don't change the meaning, that the minutes of the annual general meeting held on such and such a date as circulated are a true and correct record of that meeting. So that's moved and seconded and carried. And motion that the retired president's report was circulated prior to the meeting and is taken as read. And then there's a couple of other ones there that provide for if other people with positions in the club provide a report, but that normally doesn't happen. Then the real ones that we're interested in as treasurers is the motion 5, that the report and statements of income, expenditure, assets and liabilities affecting the transactions and property of the club duly audited and certified for the financial year be adopted, and that the club secretary lodge a copy of same with the Office of Fair Trading in the approved forum under section 11 of the Associations Incorporation Regulation 1999 as amended within 1 month of this meeting. So that goes through. Then the next one, it says that the appointment of the club officers who were duly elected to the management committee, which is our board of directors, at the Lions general meeting held on such and such date be ratified. So that's basically, that's the people who were elected at your election night, and you need to incorporate the names of each of those people and the position to which they were elected, and that also goes through. And then the final one is that you appoint Joe Bloggs or Mary Smith to be auditor for the 2020-2021 financial year with the approval of the Office of Fair Trading. So those motions are there just to remind you that they need to be carried. And on the page preceding it, there is actually a suggested agenda that you might want to follow, which basically has you meeting opened at such and such a time. You record the attendances and the apologies, confirm the minutes of the previous annual general meeting are true and correct. Then you have the annual report by the retiring president be adopted. Then you confirm the election of the board of directors and the auditor is appointed. Any general business that may pertain to that meeting, and then the meeting is closed. Usually those meetings take about 5 minutes. They're pretty much routine, but we actually have to have them because it's a requirement of the Act. So it's most important that we do. So So that's pretty critical. Any questions about that?
Yeah, Arthur, is it a protocol that the treasurer might be the mover of motion 5 and 6?
Motion 5 and 6. Well, they can be moved by anybody, but yeah, I'm going to say if the treasurer is not prepared to move the motion, I'll be very concerned about passing it, John.
Sorry,
Yes,
if he's not or if he is?
pardon? No, what I'm saying is it's quite appropriate for the treasurer to move that motion.
Yeah, okay. thank
Yeah.
you.
And I think, and I rather think that seeing it's in the treasurer's specialty area of expertise, that is the best qualified person in the club to move the motion in any case.
Thank
I
you.
know it's just got to be moved by line, such and such, but that line can be a treasurer, yeah, and also motion 5, 6, and 7 for that matter as well. The appointment of the auditor. I think that group of 3, I think, is most appropriate that the treasurer would move those motions. And if I was a club secretary treasurer, I would be attempting to move those motions. And at the annual general meeting component of our convention, I, as district treasurer, move those motions for our annual general meeting of the district. So I think it's most appropriate that they do. Any other questions there on that? Right. We'll just move on to some problem areas that the Office of Fair Trading have identified as being areas that we might like to pay special attention to. And I know we will have mentioned these things before, but these are areas where they find that people might run into trouble. Firstly, with receipts, they're saying that all funds must be recorded in your bookkeeping records. The date of receipt, name of person, organisation from whom the funds were received, the receipt number, the amount of receipt, and the amount of banking shall all be recorded. Payment shall be made by cheques or electronic transfer, not in cash. The date of cheque, name of person, organisation to whom the payment is made, cheque number, and the amount of cheque must also be recorded. So cash books and records must be totaled and reconciled with the bank statements at regular intervals, preferably monthly, and total should be carried forward to the end of the year. And I can't overemphasise the importance of what we mentioned before about getting the president of the meeting to sign that they've actually cited the bank statements from around which the financial report is based. If you're using a manual system, corrections should never be overwritten. They don't want to see any overwriting, no liquid paper and no rubbing out. They simply want a single line drawn through the entry and the incorrect entry just rewritten appropriately and initialed by the writer. And if there's a cheque involved, there should be 2 initials on it. So they don't want people scribbling all over everything, just a straight line to write it out and then put a new one in. Receipting can be an issue, and they want to make sure that we ensure that all receipts are issued for all monies received. And that the issue of consecutively numbered receipts and the relevant cash book entries are to be recorded in numerical and chronological order. The correct procedure to cancel a receipt is to mark the original and duplicate cancelled and retain both in the receipt book. And a receipt is to be issued for amounts paid from one account to another. They're wanting even when we transfer funds from one account to the other, that we should have a receipt issued for that. And saying, as far as payments are concerned, when we're making out payments, that evidence to support every payment should be maintained in a separate ring binder for each bank account in chronological sequence. They go on to say when payment is made, the cheque number and date of payment should be recorded on the relevant invoices. We don't do it quite that way, do we? We usually have a payment advice, which is attached to the documentation, and that information is covered both by reading of the payment advice and the attached invoice. As far as pre-signing of cheques is absolutely a no-no. I know none of you have pre-signed cheques in your checkbooks, do you? Don't need an answer out loud. And the simple fact of the matter is that signing cheques is just not a routine. Obviously, the person who makes the cheque out signs it because they've got access to all of the information and they theoretically know it's correct. But there is a serious responsibility for the person who co-signs the cheque. They're not just putting the second signature on to get it through the bank. They're putting it on, firstly, to ensure that the amount that's being paid is correct. Secondly, it's been paid to the correct person or organisation. And thirdly, that what's being paid for was necessary and relevant to our Lions Club activity. So we're not paying something which we use for somebody's private use or something along the way. So it's important that people take that second signatory responsibility very, very importantly. And of course, you wouldn't ask somebody to countersign your cheques unless you had all of the documentation there for them to see, I'm sure. So, but it's just something that we need to be aware of. Workers' compensation, we actually have workers' compensation insurance we pay for through our multiple district invoices, so that's all covered. And as I did mention before, the Act requires a register of members to be maintained containing the full name and residential address, the date of joining, the date of death or resignation of the membership, details about the termination or reinstatement of membership, and any other particulars the Board of Directors may decide. So they do require us to have a register of members, but I don't think there'll be 6 clubs in our district that have a proper register of members. You can use the MyLCI capacity to download information and generate a register of information. That's what I did when I was Cabinet Secretary. This is equally applicable to our district as it is to the individual clubs. And I used to every few months download the names and the details of the members that the Associations and Corporation Act required us to have in case we were ever asked to provide it. So, and that's probably as good a way of doing it, particularly when we're working with the computerised systems that we have now. And also, they require us to have a register of receipt books. And there's one thing we learned last year, Peter, wasn't there, about receipt books? If you have got a partly used receipt book and you trundle off to the auditor with that receipt book, but you have actually started another receipt book for the new year, they will require you to cancel every receipt that's not used in the receipt book that you used in the preceding year. A few clubs were required to do this, and I was required to do this when the audit came back from our auditor in July of 2019 because we had started another receipt book. So we took a little while to find out exactly what it was all about because I wanted to know why we didn't have to cancel the cheques in our checkbook. But the fact of the matter was we hadn't used the checkbook to write new cheques in that year. So so if you actually get a request from the auditor, don't be surprised that you're being asked to cancel your cheques. And actually, it's a pretty costly exercise for a district to cancel receipts. I mean, it's a pretty costly exercise because our receipt books are all bound and they're pretty expensive. We just bought some new books, and I know what they cost. So we'll be making sure we haven't got to cancel out, a hell of a lot, because one of our receipt books is I've got about 5 or 6 receipts left for this financial year in the book. So it's highly likely that I'm going to need to, before we get to audit time, open up another checkbook of a receipt book of 100 receipts. So I'm going to make sure we don't start using them based on what we learned last year. So has anybody got any questions on those problem areas there?
Peter again.
Good day, Peter.
I just floated that problem with our auditor last year about the same issue,
Yeah.
and they said they didn't have a problem with that. So it looks like it may well be an individual thing. And the inconsistency between cancelling unused receipts and cancelling unused cheques appears to be a bit contradictory.
Well, it seemed to me to be that at the time. I couldn't understand that at all. But I did get a couple of calls from a couple of clubs in the district after we had our experience, because we'd had our books audited very early, as you know. So others came back a bit later, and at least I was able to explain to them exactly what it was that why they were being asked to do what they were being asked to do, because they were just told they had to do that and weren't given a reason. So at least it was good that we went through the experience first and could let the treasurers who were talking to me at that time about this matter, we could let them know exactly why it was, and they can avoid the same pitfall, that we are going to avoid this year. So,
I think the answer to that, if it's going to crop up, hopefully, is we can get smaller receipt books.
Well,
So-
yes.
So instead of getting one book of 100, you could probably get 5 books of 20 or 2 of 50 or something.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's an option, isn't it? All I'm going to do this year, seeing I'm carrying on into the new, we're not carrying on, we don't carry on in this job, do we? We continuing into the new year. I will just record the first receipt number that I haven't used, and I will keep I'll keep a record on an Excel spreadsheet of what I need to receipt after I get the receipt books back, and carry on as if nothing's gone on. But so has anybody got any questions at all about anything that we've covered this evening, or any areas that you'd want to talk about again at this stage? If we'll get a fuller amount of information or details.
Arthur, for me, being first time treasurer in 15 years, most probably, it's a little bit of information overload, but I know that I can pick up my phone and talk to you or Peter at any time if I can't get onto you, or if I got a problem. So,
Well, that goes for everybody that's listening here right now, and those who aren't on this evening. I see the major part of the role for me isn't so much what I do in terms of the money in district. I personally feel the major part of the role is what I can do to help the treasurers in the clubs do their job and feel comfortable about contacting me, because I'm not going to bite anybody's head off if they do. The only thing I really ask is, please don't sit on an issue and let it fester and turn a molehill into a mountain before I get the phone call, or the email or what have you. I'm only too happy to talk to people as many times as they like. And as I said to the treasurers this time last year, by the time we get to the end of the next 12 months, you and I might be best pals, or we may never speak again. And if we don't speak again, I can only assume it's because you've got no issues and you don't have a need to speak to me, because you either can sort them yourself or you've got other people in your club who can help you, sort of business. So I'm happy to spend as much time as is necessary to help people come to grips with issues they have in the club and offer advice as best I'm able. And I undertake never to provide you with an answer that I don't feel comfortable with as being 100% correct. If I don't know an answer to a question, I will tell you. I'll indicate that I don't know, but I'll undertake to find somebody who I can speak to who will be able to give me the answer, and I'll come back and I'll let you know. So I'm never going to get rid of you in the sense that I'm going to give you an answer that might be right and hope that you don't come back at me. That's not the way I plan to operate, or it's not the way I operate at all. I have too much respect for everybody else who's trying to do this job, and just as an individual, I mean to say, I have a duty of care to respect everybody in the way we communicate with one another, and I think it's important that people are aware that I'm here to help. And the district, not the district newsletter, the your manual has got my email address and my phone number and my mobile phone number in it. And it's actually got my physical street address as well. You're not going to write a longhand letter, are you? But you can contact me by either of those phone numbers, or I might suggest that the home phone number might not be that easy to get onto, because when Cynthia's on the phone, she could be there for 2 or 3 hours, particularly if you're talking family history research with a cousin. But contact me and I will get back to you and we'll sort your problems out. There'll be little problems and we'll stop them from becoming big ones. And I think that's critically important that you all know and understand that. I will do what I need to do to help you get your job done effectively and in as pleasant a fashion as you can do it. But that won't mean that you won't get problems along the way and you won't get busy periods and you get a bit harassed. It goes with the circle, doesn't it?
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
If we make a donation to, say, a student, directly to a student for a bursary, now that student's not going to give us a receipt, but if they give us a thank you letter, does that count as a receipt?
Well, it would be nice if they give you a thank you letter or a note. But I understand in any case that the fact that amount appears on your bank statement will, in a court of law, circumvent a receipt that might be produced. So I don't believe that you need receipts for every expenditure item that you make. I have, as I say, made about 200 payments this year, and if I've got back 5 or 6 receipts, I'm lucky. But it doesn't bother me because it's all traceable. It's all traceable through your bank statement.
Okay,
but a good question, just the same. A lot of people in clubs think they've got to get receipts for everything, and in the olden days, that only goes back 10 or 15 years ago. You were looking for receipts. It was just the norm, wasn't it? And I think people expected to give you receipts as well. But now with the more modern technological mechanisms that we have for trading, those little niceties don't really exist anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's different. It's not wrong. It's just different. Good question, though. I'm sure other people have been thinking about that at various times.
Yeah.
But Arthur, do you mind if I just raise a question? And I know we've had a discussion, so just cut me short if I'm taking up time, but not every entry into every deposit into our bank accounts actually has a receipt to match it, because I don't make every deposit. When we were running bingo, the lady running the bingo made the deposit after the end of the day's bingo playing. The guy who runs a pub raffle, he makes a deposit the next day after he's run the raffle, on the Monday after the Friday's raffle. I do issue a receipt for every bit of cash that comes through my hands, but all it means is me copying from the bank statement the amount that he's deposited and issuing a receipt, which I feel is a bit of a waste of time. And I'd just be interested what other clubs do about third-party members of their club making direct deposits of cash received for whatever reason. I've instanced bingo and pub raffles into their account, and the need to just write out a receipt for the sake of the auditor or the sake of the procedures you've outlined in this manual.
Peter, you there? Peter, what do you think about this?
Well, in my club, all monies are banked by me, and the person that gives me the money, whether it be the barbecue chairman or the bar person running the bar, or somebody else running an organisation where they're doing any fundraising, all that money is given to me. I check count it, and I just basically give them a docket saying that it's correct, and then I bank it and I write out a receipt, and that receipt then matches up with the entry in the various ledgers, whether it be community service or administration. Now, it is time consuming, I've no doubt about it, but that's really not the point. The point is that the people that collect the money can account for it, and the people that bank the money can account for it. And you're doing all this not just for the sake of the auditor, but you're doing it for the sake of your members, because that money doesn't belong to you.
Exactly the same at the Wilsonton Club too, mate. That's how it's worked through the treasurer.
No, in our club, often other people will bank money, particularly for Christmas cakes. Christmas cake money that that's coming in from corporate things and people selling them at work and what have you, will often be banked by the people selling them. Also, a lot of younger people don't carry cash, so if you want them to buy some Christmas cakes, then they're going to want your bank details.
Can I just say we pay for an FOS machine. It's 47 bucks a month or something like that. And if we're selling that's mainly for our cakes. But we also
Well, we do too, but that's only if it's at wherever we're selling them. If we've got 4 different members selling them in their workplaces, then we've only got one square.
Yeah, no. For mine, I'd be looking for the deposit slip. They put it into the bank, most probably.
Yeah, I've sort of asked for that, and some people are really good, but other people are not so good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have that problem, Delma, about tracing back to that deposit. But Bob, do you then take up your receipt book for your community service or activities account and write out a receipt equivalent to the amount that's been deposited in the bank?
If one of our members does a working bee or a barbecue, and they hand in the money at the dinner meeting, it's generally marked alongside where they paid for their dinner, what it is, and the next day the treasurer writes out a receipt for any money handed into him. The only thing they don't write a receipt out, obviously, is the dinner dues. But if you say you came in, John, and gave me $100 from a barbecue or something you did over the weekend, I would get back a receipt to you at the next dinner meeting. Generally, our treasurer generally does the books the next day and writes out receipts for any money that came in the night or at the dinner meeting night. This 2 days, Arthur, is something that doesn't happen sometimes in our club because you don't get to see somebody, but generally it does. We try as much as we can to get it done like that, banked in 2 days.
Yeah, I guess we don't, because we would prefer to have the people who've run the function to bank the next day.
Yeah.
And they may inform me, I may see that receipt from the bank, but I don't actually go to the receipt book and write out a receipt because the evidence the money's there.
It's in
and
the
if
bank
any's
account.
going to go wayward along the way, well, it's so no one will ever know about it.
It'll be in your bank statement, as Arthur said before. So yeah.
Well, I'm afraid I don't agree. I believe any deposits that go into the account must have a receipt, full stop. If you're collecting money on a dinner meeting night, I make out a receipt including the payment for meals, anybody that pays me dues, any money collected from the barbecue chairman, any money given to me by any other project, it all gets receipted. The other issue too is that if you've got one person counting cash and one person banking it, you've got no verification that the amount that is being banked is correct, and the person that's banking that money leaves themselves open if there is an error. So I believe you should always have 2 people counting cash and being responsible for it, and that way you get an immediate reconciliation. And if there are any errors being made, that will be discovered at the time, and that's for the protection of those people that are handling cash, particularly.
Well, Peter, I agree with you. If the dinner meeting, sorry, Arthur, cut us off if I'm taking time, but
Fine.
any money any cash for any reason that passes through my hand goes in the club receipt book, as you've just outlined. But when people run a function and they bank the next day, the amount that's in the bank just goes through my book of accounts, but I don't just then say $1,001. I don't physically write out a receipt for that amount.
Yeah.
So I agree. It seems a little strange to want to write out a receipt for money that you've actually never seen.
My point exactly, and I'm saying that you should see it, because it protects the person that is collecting the money and banking it, unless, of course, they can have somebody else count it and verify that 2 people have checked it before it's being banked. But I still believe that you need to write out a receipt.
Well, you've got the people doing the banking, and you've got the person that takes the money is counted in front of them by the bank teller. So
No, it's got to be another line. It can't be a bank teller. If that was the case, that would apply to everything that you bank. They're only checking the accuracy of what you've put there. Now, if somebody's made a mistake and $50 has gone astray or been dropped on the ground or they've got it stuck in their pocket, the bank teller's not going to know.
Well, I know that requires effectively for 2 people to count the money before it leaves the scene of, for example, the barbecue.
Yes.
And
Yeah, and it's for the protection of those people, so that nobody.
I would suggest to you, it's and I'm certainly not arguing that it's most inappropriate to be counting money at the end of a heavy day that you've, served 1,000 hamburgers or whatever it might be, out in the field somewhere. That money should be bagged up, kept in a till or something, taken home and counted in a quiet atmosphere where you can think and concentrate on it.
Well, that's quite often.
Even then, you take a second person with you from the club.
I mean, take for example the fellas that do the Lions mints. There are 3 guys that go out and do the mints. They take probably $500 or $600 worth of coin home and they count it together. They write out, sign the docket, and then they give it to me. And then I take it into the bank and I bank it and I write out a receipt that goes into the community service account under Lions mints. So in that particular case, we've actually got 3 people that have counted it.
Yeah.
Just one quick one, just on this subject. I've been involved with a club in my zone this year where inaccurate banking of money has occurred, and it's a hell of a job to try and fix it.
Sure is.
I'm a believer in one person handles the money and they give it to the treasurer and the treasurer banks it. And the treasurer shouldn't give you a receipt for the money that you have given him.
Yep.
And it should be counted a second time by a different person.
Yep.
That's just my experience over the last 12 months. It sounds overloading, but when it's a mess, it gets too many people involved to try and fix it.
Maybe, John, you might like to talk to your auditor and see what your auditor says if you wish to continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it, look, if you can't, I appreciate what Peter's said and that sort of thing, but I guess when you take the distances of travelling, finishing an activity, I mean, I feel people like to sort of clean up, pack up, and the last thing you probably may not necessarily have the numbers there to 2 people to go off to the side somewhere. You may be half in the dark, counting hundreds of dollars worth of coins. You're much better off getting it back and putting it on the dining room table and getting an accurate count, and using the little scripts against the denominations from the bank is the easiest, I find. And you've got to have that element of trust within the club. And I appreciate there was plenty of room for it to go wrong, but just practically with distances and movement and that sort of thing in this area, it'd be a considerable impost to be adopting Peter's fail-safe system.
Well, maybe, as I say, maybe I suggest you talk to your auditor and see what recommendations that he or she might make to you. I personally would receipt them all. I receipt all money I get now. All the direct deposits that people put in, I receipt them. But I know that's slightly different to the cash counting, but I would personally want to receipt them if I was the treasurer. But if your auditor thinks it's appropriate, well, maybe it is appropriate, but it's not how I would do it. But that doesn't necessarily make it right or wrong, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Arthur. I'll have that conversation.
Yeah. I think you've got to do what your club is comfortable with, principally. My club, and I presume Graham's club, are comfortable doing it that way. If the club's fully conversant with the way things are being done, and the element of trust is extended, then by all means keep on doing it that way. But you've just got to be aware down the track when somebody else different is involved, the potential of error, I suppose, not dishonesty, but the potential for error is amplified.
Yeah.
I think we've also got to have a look at EFT transfers perhaps a little differently to cash. And my own belief is that that this coronavirus is the nail in the coffin for cash, and that we'll never go back to using cash money in the way that we did before, and that EFTs, even for things like barbecues, we'll sell $100 worth of sausages at Bunnings barbecue using EFTs. And I think that sort of thing is going to increase and increase markedly. And I think we may need to have a look at our receipting and what have you methods in terms of that change, which I believe will be a fundamental and permanent change to the way that many people, particularly younger ones, pay for things.
That's
They
probably
simply
quite
don't
right.
carry cash.
That's probably quite right.
Yeah,
It's
this is
happening.
right.
It's happening now.
It's happening now.
Yeah, this is right. It's going to
Greatest thing
change
since
forever. Yeah.
sliced bread is EFT.
Yeah. So has anybody else got any other questions they wish to raise?
I've just gone on to the Office of Fair Trading site. Under receipt books, it says all association must keep their receipt books. Whenever you receive money from another party, you must record each transaction, issue a receipt if asked, keep a duplicate of every receipt you issue, and keep a register of your receipt books. So
Somebody muted, you muted her.
Norm,
you've been muted.
I'm unmuted now. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, what part did you hear about the issue receipt if asked?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the wording there.
Hmm.
So quite, if you don't issue a receipt, you're not asked for a receipt, and it's probably your accountant will not check that you have issued a receipt for every deposit, because it's not necessarily that you actually have to issue a receipt. That's in accordance with the Office of Fair Trading guidelines, but you should be operating on what your club wants.
Hmm.
If they want you to issue a receipt for every deposit you take, you should be.
That give you something to work with, John?
Yeah, thanks, Arthur. I appreciate the meeting's time to discuss that. Thank you all.
Just one super quick one, if I may. The discussions about auditors. For clubs where the turnover and assets are less than 20 grand, it won't be an audit as such.
Yes, it will.
Yes, it
Well, they're
will.
level 3.
Yes, it will.
It will.
Actually, I'll let you say, Peter.
Sorry.
I've got it there. It's because you have that certificate of sanction to raise money from the public, you have to have your books audited. Every Lions club has to have their books audited, irrespective of what their turnover is. Okay?
What you're referring to there, Gregory, is true in relation of associating corporations. But if an associated corporation has a certificate of sanction, that doesn't apply. That overrules the other requirement of a lesser level of an audit.
And so, to clarify what you said earlier, that certificate of sanction, that all Lions clubs have that?
As far as we are aware.
They must have if they're fundraising.
Part of your incorporation, isn't it?
No.
Well, it's usually done together, isn't it?
District doesn't have a certificate of sanction because it's not a fundraiser.
No.
It's
But the
something
clubs
I'm
are.
gonna look at, I think.
Clubs are.
Hmm.
The district doesn't have one.
No. Well, as you say, we don't raise funds in our own right.
No.
So any other questions?
Where do I resign?
Job for life.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming along this evening and giving up your time. I hope you've learned something. But please bear in mind that I'm available all the time to handle your inquiries if you so desire. And I'll just ask David if he's got anything else he'd like to say before we go.
Hello, David.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, everyone, for attending. If there are other treasurers you know of who aren't attending these sessions, we are running sessions next week during the daytime period. And I thank you for persevering. And I hope this will work for us, conducting virtual training. Thank you all.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.